So welcome, everybody, to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio. Today is Wednesday, August the 4th, 2021. And our call-in number is 563-999-3581. And press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us. We'd love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. Give Michael just a moment to get dialed in. And I see several people's numbers that we haven't talked to them in a long time. So hopefully one of you will press 1 and give us an update on what's going on. Doing a monologue is okay sometimes, but we really want to talk about what you want to talk about. And so asking the right question, it's always somebody else's question too. And we'd love to hear from you. So we need you to press 1. And I'll direct you to our website, which is whyagain.org. And a lot of things are in the exact same place, like in the upper left corner, there's the Start Here button. There's still the bullseye in the middle of the page. You have to scroll down just a little bit. I am in the process, it probably won't get completed till this weekend, changing over. Right now, our product cart looks kind of messed up, and I'm working on getting that over to a different system so it'll look better. But I did want to say that we've got a couple of specials that we're putting out there. We mentioned it yesterday, and one of them is, we have converted all of the DVDs, workshops over to MP4s, and so they're out there for streaming individually for half the price of the regular DVDs and CDs. When we sold them separately, they used to be $40, and the MP4s are out there for $20. But we've got a special. Someone had talked to Michael yesterday, and he wanted to buy everything and wanted to know what kind of a deal. So we've come up with a deal. So you'll get 14 2-hour videos. You'll get 1 4-hour video, which is the Aramaicisms. We now have created the responsibility communication as a 6-hour package. So it's got the 2-hour workshop plus 2 different 2-hour communication practicums from the intensive. And so it's a total of 48 hours of video. And one 10-hour video of Why Is This Happening to Me Again, which also includes the 2-hour. So you would get all of that for $350. If you bought them individually, it would be $430. So it's like half price of a half price. So it's a good deal. And then the second special offer is some people are doing the 90-hour self-study codependence intensive, which that is 90 hours of video in itself, and that's $600. But what we did is we've put that together now for $800, so only for $200 more, you get the whole package that I was talking about just a minute ago, plus the 90-hour self-study. So that's a total of 138 hours of video, and that's for $800. And the same thing goes, that $600 of it, or, well, no, I don't know about that. Michael, you'll have to determine how much of that price would go towards the next live online intensive if we did it.
Well, probably seeing as how we've discounted the package both ways, it would be we'd credit $500 toward the live online intensive. Somebody decides to do that in the future, and I wanted to just offer that the 10-hour Why Is This Happening to Me Again is actually made up of the very earliest. It's a package actually for 25 years that we sold for $100 just for that 4-hour. Why Is This Happening to Me Again? It's the original one that was done in the studio way back, I'm not even sure, it's 34, 35 years ago. The original Why Is This Happening to Me Again, which is a presentation I couldn't do today. And then it has the latest recorded 4-hour Why Is This Happening to Me Again, the most updated, and then the 2-hour as well. So that's what makes up that 10 hours of video. And, one of the things we talk about is building the brain cells. And there's a systematic way to have a wide variety of material to build the brain cells. And it can be done for, relatively little money. And, of course, you can do the building of the brain cells for free as well. You can go to our archives. We've been doing this show now for 10 years, more than 10 years, 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year for 10 years. So I don't know, I haven't added the numbers up, but more than 3,000 hours. Start listening. There's the way to build the brain cells. We go through so much material. We've gone through so much in that 10 years. So you can pick it up in any way you want. We want every mind, heart, and being on the planet to have access to it. That's why for almost 40 years we traveled. We paid our own expenses. Our workshops were free. We, you'll notice we don't have any commercials on this show. We don't have any sponsors. We pay to do the show. We don't get paid. And the idea is to just offer support. If you do buy any of those packages, that's a way to financially support us in keeping this work growing and moving. And, of course, the radio show's here so that as you come into questions, as you come into confusing parts of your process, as you need more support in that building of the brain cells and in shifting the mind from the world mind of hostility and fear into a mind connected to active love. And the whole process is about making that shift. We're here to support you. So come and play. Whatever way works for you. Just carry on and do the work and put it out there. Let's take this to every mind, heart, and being on the planet. By the way, the online intensive includes 2 personal codes evaluations as well, so that you've got an exact scientific approach to looking at where are your blocks in the 10 areas of mental and physiological function. Where are the blocks? Where are the most powerful improvements to be made? And that will give you exact feedback and assignments for what to do to shift those things. So lots of ways to access the information, and we're here just to support that happening. And we appreciate you being part of the process. Anything else to share, Ms. Jeannie? Any other thoughts?
No, and I'm adding up the days as we speak, so I'll let you know that in a few moments.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, we've got 10 years, and let's see, there've been I guess Tim's been doing the first hour now for about 2.5 years, something like that. And then the first 7.5 years, Dr. Tim was, he started out as a listener and being a psychologist, would kick in with information to assist and support. Then when things would get sticky, we'd say, Dr. Tim, can you pick up the show today? We're going to be on an airplane. We can't do the show from there. Or we're going to be driving. We're going to be in the mountains and not have a signal. Or we've just got too much on our plate. Dr. Tim would pick up the show it just kind of unfolded that he became it's been awesome to have his support all these years. And we can just, let's jump into why is this happening to me again? The reading of my book, which, if you don't have a copy of that, it's out of print. So, son of a gun, you can't get one new, but you can go to Amazon or eBay, and usually there are a couple dozen copies available, used, fairly reasonably priced. Be careful. I've seen them for up to $3,000. I'm sure what. Well, I maybe shouldn't say I'm sure, but I suspect that one is never sold for that. It's kind of silly. But anyway, it's out there, or you can go to our website again. We want it to be available, so you can download the book free from our website in any one of, I'm not even sure exactly, 7 or 8 or 9 different languages, and follow along with us. And we're on page 96. We're in the section on healing, abuse, and victimhood. And
Michael, I don't know if it's my phone. You just disappeared. Okay, hold on, everybody. Michael and I both got kicked off of the switchboard. So I've dialed back in, and he is dialing back in. So hang in there with us for just a moment. Give him time to get back. All right. All right, welcome back,
well, that
Michael.
Was strange.
Yeah,
that was strange.
You and I
I'm
both
not sure.
got kicked off at the same time, and I don't think we got any of your reading.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just start over then.
Okay.
So we'll go back to the book. Why is this happening to me again? If you're new to the show, what we've been doing this year is opening the show with a couple of paragraphs from Why is this happening to me again? And if you're following along, we're on page 96. The chapter is Healing, Abuse, and Victimhood. And I had just shared with Richard, the character in the book, we've been talking about enabling, how somebody can support others in their addictive processes or avoidance by enabling. And the thought that I had just shared with Richard is a key thought in the book. And the key thoughts are one of the things that over the years have been, people have said they really like that feature because once they've read the book, they can just skip through it and read the key thoughts and just get a reminder of the whole process. So the key thought on page 96, if you're following along with us, people deserve to live in gentle, loving environments where aliveness, delight, and joy are the norm. Anything less is an insult to the human spirit. Now, Richard goes on and he offers a question. He says, I see what enabling is, and I'm giving the idea that life can be different, but I don't understand what it means when you say society becomes the enabler. Any system that is set up to make it appear that abuse behavior is acceptable, desirable, or necessary enables people who engage in that behavior to continue. People often support abuse in the world without realizing there's any option, that there's anything they can do about it. They don't speak up, similar to your experience as a kid where you kept the family secrets. Like the woman who continues to accept the abuse of the alcoholic husband in order to maintain her lifestyle, society rationalizes that the behavior of hostility at it is required to maintain itself. The question, do we need hostile behavior to maintain our society, is an incorrect question. Hostility is an integral part of our current culture. The real question we should be asking is that aspect of quote-unquote civilization, which requires violence, worth perpetrating or supporting? You know, they asked Mahatma Gandhi what he thought about Western civilization. And his reply was, I think it would be a good idea. And, you know, a civilization that has as its norm that country houses 25% of the world's prisoners when we have only 5% of the world's population? Like, there's something way, way, way off about that. And we need to come back individually and collectively to a center point where our thoughts, our feelings, our words, our behaviors, our actions come from a mind that is connected to active present love. Now, if you go back into the ancient Aramaic, you'll remember they said, and it sounds like some kind of nebulous thing. What does this even mean? It's just, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, then all other things will be made unto you. Now, The words kingdom of heaven in the Greek translation of the scriptures is a very, very poor interpretation of the Aramaic idea. We would be much closer to what was said in the Aramaic if we said the community of love. Seek ye first the community based in love, then all other things will be made unto you. If you think you have to use hostility in order to get a job, keep a job, the whole dog-eat-dog game, you just destroyed the culture. That is, you just moved it away from being a human culture into being a non-human culture. Now, if you look at these principles through the Aramaic lens, there's the world mind, the mind that's built and based in hostility or fear. And then there's the mind that is based in love. That mind that is based in love was referred to as the Christ mind. Now, that's been thought of as a religious idea. It's not a religious idea. It came through what's been interpreted as a religious teaching, but it's not a religious idea. In essence, what's being said is, if you hold a newborn child, you will discover that newborn human life is love. And there is a mind in that human life that's based in love. And if you nurture and support that mind which is based in love, then everything that life needs will fall in line for abundance, aliveness, joy, all of the things that we're talking about that people want. What was the key thought we started with? People deserve to live in gentle, loving environments where aliveness, delight, and joy are the norm. In essence, what that key thought is saying is people deserve to live in the kingdom of heaven, in the community of love. How far have we fallen from that? And so our message, our basic bottom line message, another way of saying it is that each mind can function out of conscious, active, present love and free itself from hostility and fear and all of the insanity that goes with it. And if you've been brought up in a world where, maybe a month or 2 months or 6 months, you heard screaming, raging parents yelling at each other, or maybe it was while in utero, already the community of love has been shattered for that child. And the child that comes up in a world where it's normal to have a parent who, in their unresolved frustration or rage or fear or control issues, whatever their power person dynamics are, turns and gives the child what we call the look, or uses the voice or the breath on them, that builds into a child's carbon-based memory system what appears to be a mind that is based in hostility and fear. And a self literally gets projected from that mind, and that self is a false, truly non-existent self that shows up in the mind as an appearance. You remember Yeshua said, don't judge by appearances. There's work to be done. And the work is, if you listen to him, he says, in order for you to live, now, he says that we could put a capital Y on the word you. In order for you, the true created essence being that you are, to live, he says, you've got to die. And there we'd be talking about the lowercase u, the self that is based in the hostilities and fears in the world. That one has to go. And until it does, it's going to seem like a normal way of living. Because an adult has unresolved hostilities and fears and turns that energy and that voice and that projected pattern on the child with messages of, like, you're bad. There's never been a bad child. But you can sure create one. You just go on and tell them how bad they are and what's wrong with them and how they'll always fail and how they'll never be good enough. Give them all those kinds of power person messages, and a self will develop in them that will be a quote-unquote bad self. If you've got a bad self, and, you've heard people say, well, I wasn't my best self that day. Well, what are you supposed to do with the quote-unquote bad self? Well, what Yeshua says, it's got to die. In order for the true self to come into expression, the self that isn't has to be removed. How do you do that? It's called forgiveness. You mean I have to forgive myself for doing bad things? No. Never, ever, ever forgive yourself for anything, because you can't. Well, but Michael, I thought this work was based in forgiveness. Absolutely, it is. Well, why are you telling me not to forgive myself? Well, I'll not only tell you not to forgive yourself, I'll tell you don't ever forgive anybody for anything. We've been told a lie. Forgiveness has got, the minute you hear somebody saying they've forgiven them, somebody will say, oh, I've already forgiven my mother, my father, my sister, my brother, my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, my brother, my sister, my spouse, my former spouse. I've even forgiven my future spouses. Guess what I know about that person? I know that they have to date done zero forgiveness work. They've been taught a falsehood. They've been taught a lie. They've been taught that forgiveness is about me letting you off the hook because you did something that resonated the self in me that has pain. And the culture will tell them, well, you need to forgive them for that. I say no. Don't ever. What the Greek translations are describing when they say forgive them for they know not what they do is they're describing the act of pardoning. Oh, I'm going to let you off the hook because you did something untoward. And that's a nice thing to do. But please don't call that forgiveness. Because if you call that forgiveness, once you've done that, once you've let somebody off the hook, then you'll never do your actual forgiveness work. You see, if your mind is producing some form of fear or hostility or pain or trauma, forgiveness is something you will apply to your internal fear, hostility, pain, or trauma to remove that fear, hostility, pain, or trauma. Retrain your mind to accurately think about forgiveness as removal. Oh, I'm enraged at you. Now, the Greek world would say, well, if you're enraged at somebody, you need to forgive them for what they did. Again, to clarify, I'll say never forgive them for what they did. You want to pardon them because what they did was off the mark, then fine. I pardon you. I let you off the hook for what you did, but I realize the reason I'm in pain is because there's pain inside of me, and it's time for me to remove my capacity for that quality of pain. That is forgiveness work. Now, if you haven't started doing forgiveness work yet, and, it's something that the average person says, well, that's really exciting, and boy, that sounds so cool. But rarely do they actually engage in and do it. You've probably heard many times somebody calls on the show and they start talking about a trauma that's going on in their lives. And I'll ask them, have you done any worksheets on that? And they'll kind of like almost scratch their heads and like, well, no, I hadn't thought. I haven't done that yet. So why don't you try applying the tools to remove your pain and your trauma so that you can be free of pain and trauma? Well, I just want to talk about it. There's a story about the little old lady that goes into the police station one day. She goes up to the desk sergeant. She says, "Sergeant, I want to report a rape." The sergeant looks at this lady and says, "Lady, how old are you?" She says, "I'm 92. And he's like, "Well, okay, well, when did this rape happen?" She says, 78 years ago. The sergeant says, "Why are you reporting it now?" She said, "Well, I'm not really reporting it. I just want to talk about it." And people talk about and talk about and talk about and talk from their trauma. And our suggestion is that you forgive and you forgive and you forgive as to your trauma to remove it from your structure. Now, if you don't know how to do that, we have hundreds of hours on our website free. Yeah, one of those packages will help you learn it as well if you want to spend some money to do it. And we'd appreciate it because we could use the financial support. But if you want to do it free, just go to our website. It's WHYAGAIN.org. In the upper left-hand corner of the page, you'll see a link that says Start Here. Click that link and start rocking. That will take you to worksheets. That will take you to audio links. That will take you to a full explanation of exactly how this removal process works. And it's nothing that anyone would imagine it is until they build the brain cells for what we're talking about. So all of that work that's there free on the website is there to help you to build the brain cells for what it means to reach inside yourself and remove the root of your trauma and pain. And I love the way Dr. Tim shares about this forgiveness tool. He talks about how he's done many workshops where he's gone and was this great, well-known, well-publicized psychologist that just got such awesome results with people. He says, I went to their workshops, and lots of other people went, but those other people don't produce the same results as that great and wonderful psychologist did. They teach them everything they know, but they can't replicate the results. Dr. Tim says, if you take Michael Ryce's worksheet and you start to use it, anyone he shares that with that will actually do it can replicate the results of healing. You don't need to be a great and wonderful psychologist. And Tim does on the show some awesome work with people, as you notice. And the effort is to hand this tool to people intact so they can put it to work. So go to WHYagain.org. Click on products and look at those packages if you want to spend some money to do it. Or ignore that and go up to the upper left-hand corner and click Start Here. And it'll open up a series of links and just start working through those links. There are radio shows that will demonstrate exactly how to fill in the forgiveness worksheet step by step by step. There are dozens of those that you can listen to, and each one of them, is real live people with real live issues and real live worksheets that we walk them through. And so you can engage that and build the brain cells for how that process works, and you can print the worksheets off right there from the website, or you can do the worksheet process right there on the website. And or you can go to your app store on your phone and type in the words Heartland, Heartland, all one word, Aramaic, A-R-A-M-A-I-C, forgiveness. If you type those words in your app store, you will be looking at the world's only forgiveness app. Jeannie created it. We can't count how many hours, how many months of 5 a.m. because she was working with technicians in India who did the technical work and instructed them how to create the app so that people could utilize the worksheet right there on the app. People could access the commitment right there on the app. People could access the kids game called the Drag-On Klingon game and learn forgiveness. So that's a freebie. There are lots of ways to put it to work. And here's the key is it's not about that, like that little old lady who just wanted to talk. It's not about just talking about it. It's about actually putting the pen to the paper and doing what it takes, collapse projected perception, to collapse content of the mind based in pain in on itself so that you can access the root of your pained perception and remove that energetic pattern. That's forgiveness. So it's about actually picking up and doing the work. And as you do that, believe me, you will come across questions. You know, it took me, and I'm talking about working full-time. When I say full-time, I mean, you know, the main workshop, why is this happening to me again? There were times where I've done that workshop 3 times in one day. It was actually in the city of Tucson, Arizona. I did it for the city managers. I did it for the police department. I did it for the fire department. I did 3 different why is this happening to me again workshops for different departments of city government in Tucson, Arizona. They wanted to hand these tools to the city employees. And when people hear that this is possible, it is so exciting. But sadly, oftentimes, the enthusiasm for doing that wanes pretty quickly when you realize you got to do the work of cleaning up your mind. It isn't a matter of, you know, well, there have been 1,000 generations of hate and unresolved rage in my family's bloodline. I can't imagine anybody of my aunts and uncles and, you know, great aunts and great uncles and grandfathers and grandmothers and great grandmothers and the stories I heard about my great 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 grandfathers. I can't imagine any of them ever thinking in terms of living as love in the case of a situation where there's stress and pain and trauma. I can't fathom any of them even imagining that. And I'm starting to imagine it myself, but it just doesn't seem very realistic. That's where the work is applied to begin to change in what we call the inertia-bound ego structure. If you remember the definition of inertia from physics class in high school, it said that a body moving in a particular direction at a particular rate of continue to move in that direction at that rate of speed until it is acted upon by an outside force. If there's a pain and trauma history in your bloodline, and it's never been faced with forgiveness and love, then that dynamic is inertia bound. Now, let's think about inertia for a minute. We have the world's largest battleship. It's in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, going full tilt to the north. Now, I don't know what a battleship like that, how many hundreds of thousands of tons it weighs, and moving at 40 knots an hour. I don't know how much the inertia is But let me just say that the second that the captain says, puts the order down from the bridge, we need to turn around and go 40 knots speed to the south, there's going to be some time involved in getting that puppy turned around. He's not going to say, turn it around and bang, it's turned around, because the inertia of it moving north at 40 knots per hour is going to have to be reversed. If your non-being mind, if hostility and fear has been a normal part of your life, then you're like that battleship moving north at 40 knots an hour, moving toward more hostility and fear and rage and guilt and grief and drama and trauma and suffering and divorce and abuse and hatred and vengeance and murder. Yep, they're the things that make it up in all of our bloodlines, in all of our genes. That's all there. You don't just one day say, oh, I think I'll turn it around and make it function out of love. You can apply the tools day by day by day, and each time a piece of hostility or fear comes up, as Dr. Tim said, I can hand this tool to anybody, and they can produce the result. But they can only produce the result if they're going to put it to work. And we are here to support you, comprehending how to put it to work. In a world where everybody's telling you just let them off the hook, we're going to say, please, never forgive anyone, including yourself. Pardon if you will. But you're going to have to consistently, persistently apply the tool of forgiveness, the tool of removing your capacity to produce perceptual constructs based in hostility or fear. And you're going to do that many, many, many times around every issue that you have in your life. And people will oftentimes say things like, well, Michael, that just sounds like too much work. Well, you know, if I'm going 40 knots north with this 100,000-ton machine and I want to go 40 knots south, it's going to take some work. It's just the definition of work. It isn't something you just snap your fingers and it's done. You know, there's an interesting passage in the scriptures where there are a number of disciples who are talking to Yeshua, and in essence they say, what do we need to do to please God? That's kind of the question they ask. And Yeshua explains to them. In essence, he says, you're going to have to go inside yourself, you're going to have to remove your hostility or fear, and you're going to have to function as a human being, function as love. And literally, half of the disciples who heard him say that got up and said, too hard a saying, and they left. And they made up a story that, oh, there's nothing you can do. And they tell the story as though it came out of Yeshua's mouth. Well, there's nothing you can do. You just have to believe and say a certain set of magic words, and then he'll take care of it for you. Ladies and gentlemen, no bigger lie has ever been told and put into the mouth of the man named Yeshua. He said there's a work to be done. And that work is simple, but it is not easy. We are here to help you to build the brain cells for how to turn that battleship around and to get to the point where you experience more of each day in a space of physiological, mental, and emotional serenity and love, and less in a space that incorporates anything based in pain. It's a work, and people say, well, but Michael, it's going to have to do all that. It's like, well, so that's what you have to do. What does it matter what you have to do if you want that result? I mean, you can keep doing what you've always done. You'll keep getting what you've always gotten, and it'll be the same in the next generation, the next generation, the next generation. You know, Jonas Salk, the man who invented the Salk vaccine, said the most important thing you can do is be a good ancestor. Pick up and do your work, and your generations will benefit from it. If you're the early adopter, it's a big deal. It's a significant piece of work to step into. But, you know, if you want it, what else is there to do but to do it? And if you lose it and you forget, we're here to remind you and to help you to build the brain cells to take you there. So that's the essence of what this work is about. And we're honored and delighted that you're here to be part of the conversation. And if you're out there in listener land and you're on one of those stations where we can't see you in our control panel, our call-in number, the way that most people listen to the show, is by calling 563-999-3581. Call that number. You'll be listening to the show. And then if you have a question, all you have to do is push one on your keypad. Through the amazing magic of technology, a little hand will go up in the control panel that Jeannie's looking at, and she runs the control panel for the show. Thank you for being our producer, Jeannie. And she'll introduce you by your area code, and you know, we'll be having a conversation. So what's on your mind? How can we support you? And Miss Jeannie, do we have anybody in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat?
We actually have two hands up. So the first one's area code 605. 605, you're on the air. Who do we have?
Okay, good. My name's Joe.
Welcome, Joe.
Are either one of you or both of you, thanks. Are you a clinical psychologist?
I'm a naturopathic physician. And my specialty for my work, I'm the director of a foundation that's translating a copy of the oldest known New Testament in its original Aramaic language into English. And the foundation of this work comes out of that first century Aramaic language. The tools that I'm describing, the process I'm describing, comes out of the first century Aramaic.
Okay, because in your description page it says that you or somebody else is a clinical psychologist.
That's Dr. Tim.
Dr. Tim Hayes does the first hour. He's been a clinical psychologist for some 45 or 46 years now, and he started doing this work that I developed out of the Aramaic about 18 years ago and found it to be, and he regularly proclaims and shares with people, that this is far more effective than anything he ever learned in clinical psychology. That's why he does the first hour of the show. So if you want his input and opinion as a psychologist, he'd be the man to speak to. If you want to speak to the originator of the work, I'm the one to speak to. And you can certainly have a conversation with both of us, and we'll give you everything we can possibly give you in the way of support.
Well, I called in one time. Is he the only other person that hosts the show?
Yes. Yep, the only person.
All right, because then I had asked a question. All right, I had asked a question. He had hung up on me. Apparently, he couldn't answer the question. Because I wanted to find out
Dr. Tim
about.
Hung up on you because he couldn't answer a question? I've never heard of such a thing happening. But ask me the question, and I promise you, even if I can't answer it, I sure won't hang up on you. And so, how can I support you? What's on your mind?
Now, this has to do with a clinical psychologist. I have been talking to somebody who was a relationship counselor, and she said that her work is in a specialty of narcissistic personality disorder. And I wanted to find out about what he thought about narcissistic personality disorder And I didn't even get that far because he kept on, how can I support you? This show isn't about that particular topic. And then he said something else, and then he hung up on me. So I was thinking you might be the clinical psychologist. But okay, not a problem. I don't think you can answer the question because I wanted to find out what a clinical psychologist, how they would diagnose somebody with a narcissistic personality disorder.
Well, can I give you some would you like some support and feedback on that question? I'd be happy to give you from my perspective of doing this work and developing this work over the last 50 years.
Sure.
Okay. So here's my input. Have you ever looked at and broken down the word diagnosis? Let's start by breaking that down. An agnostic is someone who doesn't know, and a dyad is two, diagnostic, two who don't know. Be careful when you buy into diagnosis. I just offer that as a thought. And here's what I would offer, is if you've got someone who has been given a diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder, from the perspective of this work, we would simply say, here's a person who's carrying some thought disorders, some mind energy that doesn't belong in the human system, and if you apply forgiveness to those thought disorders and remove them, that is, forgive them, what somebody called narcissistic personality disorder, which is a fiction made up by people and put in a manual so they can get third-party pay, that diagnosis will disappear. That would be my offering. Apply forgiveness to whatever the thought disorders are in that mind. Now, how do you determine what a thought disorder is? It's actually pretty easy. Whenever hostility or fear comes up in a mind, that is an indicator. That is an energy attached to the thought that's running that person's mind in the moment. And that indicator is telling you that this thought does not belong in this system. When you apply forgiveness to that thought and remove it, whatever the diagnosis is, whatever two who gathered and really didn't know what was going on, though they'll give you a great story about how they know exactly what's going on, whatever it is, it'll disappear if you apply forgiveness to it. There's actually a psychologist, clinical psychologist, who often runs the switchboard. She doesn't host the show, but she often runs the switchboard for us, because when she first came in touch with this work about, I think maybe it's 10 or 12 years ago now, she had some very severe physical symptoms and had some pretty severe diagnosis. And in her first workshop, she literally got rid of 90% of that. At one point, as a clinical psychologist, she said, if clinical psychology ever discovers your work, Michael, they're going to have found the Holy Grail. And they're going to give up what they're doing. So that would be my offering. I mean, pursue diagnosis, and, it's a fun topic and makes money and, does all sorts of things. But if you really want to move through and heal, apply forgiveness to the thoughts in that mind. Or if you're the one observing the person who's been given that diagnosis, apply forgiveness to the thought disorders in your mind that you blame on them and you think are their fault, and you'll get free of whatever your personality disorder is.
So the answer
that would be
is,
my
in
offer.
quick form, is to apply forgiveness. In other words, forgive yourself for whatever wrongs that you think you might have done.
Never forgive yourself.
Never forgive yourself.
Never forgive yourself.
Okay.
No. Big mistake.
And never forgive others. Okay.
Never forgive others. No.
So when you say,
because you can't.
So when you say,
when you use.
Okay.
Well, let me fill the blank in here before we go further. So, in this culture, when people say, "I forgive you," they're using a mistaken Greek idea of, "Oh, I'm going to let you off the hook for what's going on inside of me," and they call that forgiveness. So I forgive you. I let you off the hook. We're saying never do that. And as I said earlier in the show, the person who says, I'm going to let you off the hook for what's happening inside of me, or I'm going to let myself off the hook for this terrible mistake or this terrible thing that I did, they're not forgiving at all. They're calling that, mistakenly calling that forgiveness, but they're actually pardoning. I pardon you. Oh, you're the person with that narcissistic personality disorder, and you do these horrible things, and I'm going to pardon you for that. And now I realize that when you did those horrible things, I had some terrible pain and trauma moving in me. Oh, God, I was so hurt. And now I understand. Yeah. I got it. I'm going to apply forgiveness inside of me to my hurt and get free of it. And now I don't have to blame you anymore for whatever your diagnosis is because I'm free of my pain. So I'm going to suggest to the person, whichever side of that discussion they're on, that they apply the process of removal to the energetic patterns that are causing their pain, and they'll be free of whatever the diagnosis is or whatever the impact of the person is in their lives. And then a new thing's going to show up, and that is in the same circumstance where yesterday they thought that person with narcissistic personality disorder was the problem in life, they're in pain, they'll be around that person. That person will do the same stuff they did yesterday, and they'll look at them and smile and go, oh, hey, I've blessed you, and I hope you have a good day. And the person with a narcissistic personality disorder is going to go, wait a minute, I've always been able to control you when I do this. What's wrong with you that you're not responding to my insanity? And you say, I just forgave that from my mind, and I'm not playing that game anymore. I'm finished with it. I tell you, it's a whole lot better.
So how do you apply this forgiveness to remove the hurt and trauma?
Okay, so there's if you go to our website, whyagain.org, in the upper left-hand corner, there's a button that says Start Here. And that will walk you through a whole series of links of here's how it's done. And where you'll end up is with a worksheet, a step-by-step tool. Here's how it's done. And there are many examples of, in radio shows where either Dr. Tim or Jeannie or myself have walked people through the forgiveness process. And you can listen to those. You can download the worksheet from our website. Here's a step-by-step. Fill in these blanks. Here's how it's done. And then, as you do that, as you start to apply forgiveness, start to build the brain cells for how to forgive, if questions come up, we're here to answer those questions and support you. And you'll be doing actual, true forgiveness work, as opposed to pardoning work.
All right.
And there's also an app that you can...
Is that whyagain.com?
WHY.
No,
the name of my book is Why Is This Happening to Me Again? So the website is whyagain.org, upper left-hand corner, or as you started to say, you can go to your app store in your phone and type in the words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness, and you can do that worksheet process right there on the app. Download the app. It's free. Totally private. We purposely, because when people start getting into this kind of stuff, I mean, it gets pretty intimate. And so we purposely set up an app. You know, most apps, they want your phone number, or they want to be able to operate your phone and your camera and have access to we don't have any of that. We have one request, one permission. So it's totally private, and the permission is just that it can use the internet to make the app work. That's it. Nothing else. So it's totally private. You can fill that worksheet in with the most secret, disastrous, painful, traumatic things you can and start to work through them. And it works.
Okay.
And then if questions develop, which they will, we're here to answer those questions.
Okay. Oh, all right. I'll hang on for a second. So when you bring in the second caller, I'll find out what he or she wants.
Okay, and if you have any more questions, I'm here to answer those questions all the way through. I'm with you. I hear you. I hear your questioning, and I hear your searching, and we're here to help you to find the answers to the dilemma that you're facing. And, you know, I don't know whether you're the one that they diagnosed with this personality disorder or it's somebody in your life, but whatever it is, we're here to support you.
Okay, thank you.
Delighted. Nice to meet you, Joe. Blessings.
Thanks.
All right, Miss Jeannie, you've got another hand up.
We do. It's 480. I believe it's Cecilia. You're on the air.
Hi. Hi, you guys. So I wanted to share. I had talked to a friend of mine who at one time was my sponsor in Adult Children of Alcoholics, who did the steps
Right.
with me. And I shared with her my reaction and my trigger and how I worked through it over the weekend. And I told her this time was different because I breathed. I didn't say Ruka. I breathed the breath of God in me into the pain. And she said, "Well, that's what it says in the Adult Children of Alcoholics workbook. Don't you remember we went over that?" And I said, "That was in 2012. No." And she said, "Well, maybe you're at another level that you can understand it." So
awesome.
I found it in here, and it says, with step 10, which is to take a daily inventory of personal inventory, and when we're wrong, promptly admitted it. I'm thinking of the worksheet, and I'm thinking about your worksheet. And then it says, with step 10, we also realize we have released more of our control, and we are learning the difference between control and discernment. Discernment comes from inside and is the breath of God guiding us to do the right thing. We know what to do we know what to do in a given situation when our breathing matches God's breathing. In comparison with control, our breathing is often unnatural and short. There is a constriction in the body. We feel driven and fixed without a sense of having real choices when we operate from rigid control. We speak without thinking. We feel embarrassed. We then punish ourselves harshly and apologize to others a lot. We hold resentments. It goes on and on and on, but it's so in line with what you're doing that I feel that I can go back to the group. My thing is to not tell my story over and over again.
Right.
And that's what I feel what happens. Well, that's what I feel what happens when I go to the meetings. And it's just about telling the story. But I mean,
people
I know there are
story.
people there.
Well, let me interrupt you for a minute.
Yeah,
maybe you're going to hear something totally different if you go back, because what you just read, you obviously didn't hear before, and that's where they were heading in those meetings. And maybe because you were stuck in your story, we actually have a musician. I'll send you a link to the song. We have a musician who is our original music director at Heartland, and he wrote a song called "Stuck in My Story, My Pain and My Glory." And so now that you've given up your story, you might hear the Adult Children of Alcoholics information a whole lot differently. You can also go to the home page, and you'll see a link to how this work ties to addiction. And I did several shows, and I had a young woman who was very well versed in the 12 steps. Oh, cool.
I did listen to it this morning, yeah.
Now when you say you did it this morning, we spent weeks on that project, so you didn't listen to it all this morning. There's more, but you might, build more brain cells around the AA work and how it ties to this, and it's a perfect match.
So maybe it's my perceptual construct that told me that these groups are not helping the 12-step stuff.
Yeah. Well, remember that whatever it is, and we're down to the last few seconds, but whatever it is, you got to have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So it sounds like you go back and you'll hear things much differently.
Okay, thanks.
And I'm going to say we can continue this conversation tomorrow, but the phone's going to cut us off for the show.
Okay.
So I'm going to say, everybody, have the best year yet of your eternal life. Joe, it was a great time to talk with you, and blessings. Bye-bye.